Welcome everyone to another episode of Slasher Scotty. I am your host, Scotty McCoy, and boy, do I have a surprise for all of you. I have on Zoom with me right now Jamie Martin Mann, and he played Tate Black on NBC's and Peacock's Days of Our Lives. Hey Jamie, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to have you on. I know I reached out to you a couple of months ago, and then you finally got back to me, and I'm so glad that we got to make this happen. I mean, I've been a fan of yours. Like you are literally the perfect Tate.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad to have you. So let's start off with some basics. How did you get your start into acting?
It's a good question. I started in dance when I was in second grade, and I think around the age of around third grade, I got a manager and started acting. I did a lot of theater growing up. In middle school, I did some regional theater. I played the role of Billy Elliot like four times regionally along the East Coast. And then in high school, I did a lot of theater just throughout high school with my we have an amazing theater department at the school that I went to. So I was lucky enough to be a part of that. And then intermittently, I started TV and film acting. The first gig that I got was Country Comfort, which was my junior year of high school. And then yeah, I booked Days of Our Lives, and it's been a really awesome road. I feel really blessed to have had so many unique opportunities that just have provided me with, I feel like, a lot of kind of diversified wisdom, which is great. I'm so glad, and I learned so much on Days. It's such a wonderful training ground for an actor because everything's so fast paced,
Mhm.
and the community is so special. Everyone is so supportive, and I think without the cast, without Eric and Emily, it would have been very, very difficult. And I had a great time because of it. So yeah.
Nice. Nice. I actually, when I have a guest on, I do a lot of research about them to see what they, if they've, what they've done and everything. And I did a lot of, looking at your Instagram and that just to see what you've done, any plays in that. And I saw you were in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
I think it was like a year or two or so, maybe a couple years or whatever ago. And I live in Baltimore now, but I grew up
Oh,
in Pennsylvania, and I'm actually not far from Lancaster, which is actually, I was like, whoa, he was in Lancaster.
that's so random that you say that because my whole extended family is from Lancaster. Like
Oh,
my dad's whole side of the family is from Lancaster. I do Thanksgiving there every year. Yeah,
nice.
I got to work at the Fulton when I think it was eighth grade, the beginning of eighth grade. And that was such a pleasure because I could just live with my grandma, which was, I mean, amazing. That was a really special experience. That was also the last time I played Billy Elliot. So I got to,
Nice.
open the show and my whole extended family was just around. So it was, yeah, a really special experience.
Nice. That's definitely bittersweet. I mean, what a way to end it with your extended family being there in support.
Yeah,
That's just absolutely amazing.
it was beautiful.
So what was your audition like for Days of Our Lives for when you auditioned for Tate?
It's a good question. I did, I think I think I submitted a self-tape and then I had a Zoom call with Marnie Ciata, who's the casting director. She's amazing. And we just kind of got to know each other, talk one-on-one, and I did my audition with her. And then I came back and did my audition with a couple of the different Hollies.
Hmm.
So I never actually ran it with Ashley, but I
Hmm.
ran it with a couple different girls.
Okay.
And yeah, it was a really chill audition process. I mean, Marnie fosters such a safe environment on Zoom auditions. So I really appreciated her. And she was a really open line of communication, which that's so nice to have. I mean, she had so much advice coming in, which was great. And then yeah, I didn't get to meet Ashley until we'd both booked the role. And then Marnie actually set up a meeting with the two of us, and we got to talk about, you know, life on set and all these other various things. And then Ashley and I actually got to run some of the scenes together for a little while, which was, I mean, really, that was really nice that they gave us space to do that, to, get to know each other and run some of our material before we had to
Yeah.
full send it on set.
Absolutely. So what was your experience like on the show?
It was amazing. I mean, working on a soap opera is not easy. It's again, like I was saying, it's so fast paced, and I think that it definitely took some getting used to.
Mhm.
Say the first month of working on that show, I felt a little bit just in my head because again, you're learning material quickly and you don't have a lot of takes, you don't have a lot of time. It's not a good environment for a perfectionist, which I tend to be in terms of acting. I like to try and make sure that I'm giving and delivering the best work.
Mhm.
Um, so I did have to let that go a little bit and go with the flow, which I think, again, that's also a part of acting. It's very much finding the balance between those two. And it did force me to come out of my shell a little bit. And I wouldn't say prepare less, but like prepare for my preparation to not help me is
Mhm.
kind of how I had to a challenge that I had to navigate for sure.
Mhm.
Um, I will say like the environment on that set is so warm. It's so warm. Everyone's so kind, and I think that as an ideal, like I think one of the day's set ideals is just
Mhm.
kindness. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere, and everyone is so centered in the goal to like keep the show running and keep the show moving
Yeah.
because efficiency is so imperative. And I think that because of um sorry, I lost my train of thought. I think because of that efficiency, because of
Mhm.
the fact that people really like need to get the show up and running as quickly as possible, there is no time for drama. There is no time for people to not be getting along. And I think that everyone takes that to heart and is so actively kind. And I really appreciated that. Of
Mhm.
course, Emily and Ashley and Eric were, three of the people that I worked the most with, and all
Yeah.
three of them are, I mean, their talent knows no bounds, but they also just, again, were so supportive and so kind and always wanting to meet and run and experiment and just, yeah, just have a really good time, which I appreciated that so much to have a group of people that I was working with often that, were committed to the fun of it all. Like that, it's a job, but it's also like we all dream. That's the dream to get to work on a set like that. And
Yeah.
so really allowing for the fun to shine through, I think was amazing. Like that was amazing. And it totally makes the work that much better. I
Absolutely.
could see it on camera when I watched scenes where I was having fun. Like it's just it's a totally different product.
Right. Now, I had Carson Boatman on my show about maybe 2 years ago, I'd say. Great guy.
Right.
Yeah, and one thing he talked about was, and I know you didn't have any sex scenes, but he talked about the sex scenes as very uncomfortable because there's so many people in the room at once.
Right.
And
Yeah.
my point is that I know you had, kissing scenes with Ashley. And regarding that, you said it's such a fast pace. So do you have time to rehearse that? Because you want it to look authentic because it is a soap opera and you two are like that couple. So you want it to look authentic as well and not look, cheap or fake. So how do you prepare for those kind of scenes? It's such a short but fast-paced environment.
That's a good, yeah. I mean, we are very close. Like Ashley and I we were very close friends. So I think that whenever those scenes came up, I made sure to take the time and find the space to
Mhm.
kind of have that conversation with her and just, discuss it.
Mhm.
It was usually pretty quick on set before we
Mhm.
had to film. And I really think that just because we were friends and we were very comfortable with each other, we could kind of be like, okay, like we have our rehearsal, we have our shot, and when do you want to do it? And usually I think we did it during the rehearsal just so that we'd done it once, we'd gotten it out of the way so that it wasn't super surprising on tape.
Right.
Um, yeah, it ended up not being super contentious just because we're really good friends. And so
Mhm.
we could talk about it and make sure that the two of us were both comfortable.
Yeah.
And intimacy coordinators are becoming a lot more the norm. And
Yeah.
I think that it's a really good movement to
Mhm.
have someone advocating for actors when they're in these more vulnerable positions. I didn't have to do any like really, really sexual scenes, but some of the actors have, yeah, really, really a lot of intimacy. And so to have a coordinator on set who is in charge of advocating for actors and also making sure that everyone's comfortable is it's great. I think it's really great.
Absolutely. So we know that Tate is still on canvas, but obviously is played now by, I believe it's Leo Howard. But one of your biggest scenes as Tate was the overdose scene with Holly, and that was absolutely insane. But it's reality because that's really what is happening, a lot in our country as well. So
Mm.
the fact that that scene, what was the most challenging part in bringing that story to life?
It's a good question. I'd say the challenging part for me was I'd never experienced anything like that before. So it was kind of going in blind.
Mhm.
And I think I took a lot of time really figuring out how to raise the stakes to that point, to that level.
Mhm.
And yeah, you just kind of jump into the deep end on scenes like that and hope that it
Mhm.
looks good, which is tough and vulnerable and scary. But I think it ended up looking as good as I could have hoped. Again, it's just kind of like, all right, here we go. Like action. Then you're like, oh, okay, like I've got to be really dramatic and take some take some fast breaths and get the heart rate pumping before you run on set. So yeah, that's kind of how I approached it, just because I knew I didn't have a lot of time and I had to be relatively fast paced. And then
Right.
also it's like, I mean, Ashley looked pretty down bad down on the floor, like foaming at the mouth. So
Oh
it
yeah.
was definitely something I could play off of, which was nice.
Yeah, and I think with it being on Peacock, that allowed more leeway with the effects because I don't know how they could get away with that during daytime on NBC. I don't know if they could.
Yeah.
Maybe not as intense, but I know with Peacock they had a lot more leverage and leeway to actually, go, full in with that with those effects, and it really looked good.
Mm.
Absolutely. So before you got the role of Tate or audition for Days, did you ever watch Days before?
I actually hadn't. I've just never, it's not like, it's kind of unfortunate that it's not as popular amongst like my age group.
Mhm.
So I hadn't seen the show, but I'd watched Friends, and famously Joey Tribbiani is on Days of Our Lives on
Love
Friends.
Friends.
So I knew the name, um, which was very funny going in. And yeah, yeah, I hadn't, but I'd heard of it for sure.
Nice. I love Friends. I watch that every night before I go to sleep. I
It's so
absolutely,
great. It's so great.
it's such a great show. So when you auditioned for Tate, did you know a lot about the character and how were you able to like grow this character to life? Because the last time we seen Tate before you came on was the whole storyline of Teresa at the time played by Jen Lilly,
Mhm.
where she got her embryo stolen by Kristen, you know.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know about that until I got to set and talked to Eric. And he was like, yeah, your embryos got stolen. I was like, okay. God, how does that change things? No. I that's I think I mainly took what I had and ran with it. So like all of the tone in which he was speaking in those initial scripts that I received,
Mhm.
I kind of built the character around that, I would say.
Mhm.
He at the beginning is a very hostile kid, and he doesn't really trust his parents, and he hates the situation that he's in, and he doesn't have any friends. And so I kind of took that irritable nature and ran with it. And I'm glad that I did, because I think it gave him a really redeemable arc. I remember when I started, the fans were saying, I think I glanced at, and I shouldn't do that, but I glanced at comments on some Facebook post, and they were like, Pete's so rude, blah, 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 like what a teenager.
Mhm.
And I'm glad that I went with that choice, because I think that it gave him such a nice arc when more drama started to ensue, and he really did have a lot of opportunity to redeem himself, which I appreciated. And I'm glad that I started at that more
Mhm.
intense, angry place, because he does kind of lighten up by the end of my time there, at least.
Right. And you know, I know you've done an interview before and you spoke about why you left, mainly because of college, which
Yeah.
I really respect that decision because that's not a hard, you know, that's a very hard decision to make. Do I want to
Yeah.
go to college or do I want to work on a soap? You know what I mean? Like it is a very hard thing to decide. So what was, I guess, the factor in you saying I need to leave the show and go to college full time?
I honestly, like, while I was filming, it was a juggle, and I luckily could do it over most of my filming occurred over the summer.
Mhm.
The musical theater major that I'm in is very just all intensive, and you
Mhm.
have to be there in person. And so the amount of time that I was going to be required on set, and also the direction in which Tate was moving,
Mhm.
Tate was becoming a bigger character.
Mhm.
I knew that I wasn't gonna have the capacity to commit as much time as was necessary. And I think that was one of the main reasons. I knew I didn't want to leave school. I talked to my parents about it, and I want to finish out college.
Mhm.
But I also knew that if I had my feet in two pools, it wouldn't have been fair to the people that I was working with. Like,
Yeah.
to be half in, half out is not, that means I'm not giving my all. That means I'm not giving it the attention it requires. And I didn't want to be putting my castmates at a disadvantage because I couldn't be
Mhm.
fully committed. Um, and that was another main reason. Like, you know, I didn't want to have half my heart in it and then also be overloaded with schoolwork.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that was mainly where the decision centered. And also just I spent a lot of time talking to Marnie about it, because I was like, if I film less and try to front load, or all of the solutions that we came up with had a lot to do with just like front loading and getting a lot done really
Mhm.
fast, which would have been really difficult. And also the role was getting larger, so that probably wasn't going to be possible. And
Yeah.
those were kind of the main reasons.
And that's very commendable. I mean, it's probably a really hard choice to make, and I mean, you had to pick the one that was best for you, and ultimately, it was going to college, which is absolutely amazing. Because I mean, you know, I'm in grad school myself, and I mean, it's a hard choice to make, you know, to juggle all these things, and I mean, you probably had to fly to LA, and you know, it becomes a lot.
Yeah,
So if you were still on the show as Tate, I'm gonna pick at your creative juices here a little bit. So
sure.
if you were still on the show as Tate, what storyline would you like to be a part of? Like anything in the world, you could be as creative as you want. What storyline would you really like to be a part of that you weren't
Oh my gosh.
in?
Wait, let me think about this. I feel like there's certain people that I really wanted to um I got to know Abigail Klein really well,
Nice,
and I kind of wish we'd gotten to work together. I don't know what the storyline would have been, but like that overlap would have been fun.
nice.
Um, so yeah, that's probably my answer. I would have liked to work with Abigail for
That would have
sure.
been cool, actually. Her doing even because she does public relations, so her doing public relations on freeing your name of the
Right.
overdose. You know, that would have been
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
cool.
yeah. It
Yeah,
would have been great. Um, yeah. I got to work with Rob Scott Wilson at the end there, which
yeah.
was really fun. We had like one-off scene together, which was cool. But yeah, I mean, everyone on that set is chill. So I kind of wish I'd gotten to work with more of them.
Have you? I don't think you worked with him, but have you ever seen a Teo on set?
I don't think
Okay,
so. Let me think. What's his last name?
Teo Pendulous, I think is how it's pronounced. Tony DeMera.
Um, Not that I can remember, but
Okay.
I'm also terrible with names. So if I saw his face, I might totally have seen him before.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So the last thing I got for you, do you have, this is all about you. So do you have anything to promote? Any work, any social media, any websites, anything at all that you would like to promote to the listening viewing audience?
I will promote at the end of at the beginning of senior year in the Michigan Musical Theater program, there is this thing that the seniors do called senior entrance, and it's like a 30-minute long musical like parody medley,
Nice.
and it's always really well produced and well done. And if people want to tune in whenever that is posted on YouTube, I highly recommend. It's going to be me and my classmates, and it's a Michigan tradition, and it's great. So yeah, I'll promote that for sure. Tune
Nice.
into the Michigan 2025 senior entrance.
Nice.
Uh,
Well,
yeah.
we're I'm on your Instagram, and we've now that we talked, we can actually see things without it going to those weird inboxes and everything.
Right. Yeah,
So definitely send me that link when it's
absolutely.
posted, and I will be more than happy to share it. I will obviously tune in and support you guys. I can't wait to see that. But I thank you, Jamie, so much for taking the time on this Friday afternoon to join me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Absolutely. Yeah, you do the same. All right. Bye.
Bye bye. Nice to meet you.
Yep, you too.